Welcome to Be Bell Podcast. Yes, I have a little bit of a cold, so apologies. But today's episode is really exciting. I first met this lady a couple of years ago when we did an event together. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more as well. She is absolutely fantastic. She gives us everything and tells us her whole story and everything behind FHStyle. Today, I have the beautiful Fiona.
This series of Be Bell Podcast is brought to you by award-winning skincare brand, Irish-founded, female-founded Ella & Jo, by the amazing Charlene Flanagan and Neve Ryan. I will tell you more about Ella & Jo during this episode.
Fiona, welcome.
I'm here.
Did you like my little clap then?
I love the little clap. It's like the little excited girly
So
clap.
just before we come on, I have to do a little clap to say that we're starting, but I always feel like such a moron do that. But
Well, I love your claps.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for coming.
I'm
Can
so
you
excited
believe?
to have a proper chat.
I know.
I feel like we were only getting started the last time.
I know. So a little bit of history. Obviously, we met. We had a fabulous night out with Maeve Dennehy.
Another Maeve Dennehy event where she drags everyone together.
Absolutely.
We love her.
And we ended up outside having the old wine and just chatting
Just
the night
one.
away. Yeah, just one. Never one for me. Actually, as I get older, it is just one. Isn't that weird? But yeah. And since then, I've always been like, got to get her on, must speak, must talk. And then just life takes over, doesn't it?
It does. And I think we're both relatively near each other geographically, and yet we travel a lot with work.
Yes.
So I think we're probably on the M50 going in opposite directions many times. So
All
it is
the
a
time.
joy to be here having a chat.
Yeah. And I can't believe...
Slightly apprehensive, actually.
Are you?
Well, in a good way. I mean that in the kindest. Not because
Yeah.
of you or, I've listened
Yeah.
to some, not all, on the podcast. For me, I think when I get invited on to find out the truth behind the person, I'm a bit like, ooh, this is a new one for me now.
Yeah.
So usually I get asked in the sphere of where I work,
Where you work.
which is good. And it's all part of it. So yeah, I'd be interested to see where this goes.
And we always tip off that, because work is such an important part of your life when you work for yourself. But I think I was saying to you earlier, I'm always interested in why people do what they do, why they have the opinions that they have. And that all stems from
Childhood.
Absolutely. So for you then, where did it all begin?
Where I am now begin? It's a very deep question. For me, I grew up in a family business. I think that was my first foray into meeting a lot of people out in the public. I was put to work very young. That sounds very cruel, but we came from a family where, thankfully we didn't have any financial kind of challenges. We had a few along the way, but in general, once you worked for it, you got the extra bit of pocket money. So my parents had an oil business. We had a yard and we had delivered home heating oil. And then later in life,
God, I'm sorry, I had to stop there. I thought you were talking like Dallas.
yeah, Dallas in the middle of rural County Limerick.
I just had this image straight away. Dallas. Oh
An
my
oil
God.
business in Ireland
Okay.
is, a lot of independently run. And it would have been back in the day by my dad. My first foray into thinking my parents are a little bit crazy. My dad, I could hear him in the cross coming down in his truck. He left his job in the middle of a recession in the 80s and set up an oil business. And I remember my mom ushered me out into the porch, right, going, your dad is coming down. And I was like, what is this noise? And all I could hear was beep, beep. And he did it continually after that to annoy me. And I thought, what's he doing? So he bought his first truck and himself and my mom built the business from the ground up. So I had been part of that, and my brother, who's 6 years older than me, since we were kids.
And so what was your piece of that though? Like, what's the safe bit for kids to do? I don't know much about oil.
Oh, I was used to going out into the yard, filling up tractors. Like, you wouldn't let your kids do it now. Every random person on the street was coming in to fill up their car. Luckily, when you grew up in a rural part like that, you kind of knew everyone. But then as the business kind of grew, the contracting side of it grew, and then they were going down to the Spanish fleets, filling up the fishing trawlers. So it became very exciting. And I remember, getting trips out with my dad in the truck, or, my mom would invariably have to bail them out in some parts of the country. So I was always brought along on the journeys kind of with them. And I think, when both your parents are working and have their own business, you're kind of dragged into a lot.
Yeah.
My dad ran for politics, so I have very early memory of going around the car with the campaign flyers and leaflets. He didn't get in that time, unfortunately, but since then he's very involved in one of the political parties. So I grew up kind of meeting people all the time, different characters, and we had, so I just have one sibling, and my mom was a complete homebird, quite ill. She passed away 13 years ago. So she passed away from COPD, but had battled a lot with mental health issues from a very young age. I remember that. A great woman, full of humour. So I think from a very young age, and this comes back to maybe my why, I think I was a facilitator at a very young age. I learned how to read a room quite quickly. When you're coming home from school maybe and you kind of know if the form is good or maybe not so good, or we're going somewhere on a trip, it was a lot of highs and lows in any house, I guess. But I think from a young age, I was exposed to mental health challenges. So definitely for me.
Did you know then though? Like, because I remember friends would say, oh, your mum was taken to the bed or whatever.
Always knew.
Yeah.
I knew from a very young age. And I had only one grandparent that was alive. And she was very present. She passed away when I was 9, but up until then she was very involved. So I remember coming home from school knowing that something wasn't right. And there was great days as well.
Yeah.
I think, people forget about that when they talk. Lots of therapy later. Yeah. But like people forget that there is a really humorous side to mental health as well. Because when your days are good, they're phenomenal, you know. And no one wants to say like, this is who I am as a person. You don't want to be defined. And my mother never wanted to be defined. So we kept, I'd like to think it was different from sweeping it under the carpet, but there was a level of respect there that we tried to, look after my mom and equally not let it define her. But unfortunately, she battled and she battled hard. So I think that shaped us all.
Yes.
And my dad was, very caring and also very busy. So I saw the balance of him trying to be there. And there's a lot of responsibility everywhere.
Do you find was that your first major loss when you lost your mum?
I think my grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting story for time. I remember I was very, very close to her and the phone rang. I was 9. I remember this as clear as day. And my dad was playing golf. He was playing like the captain's prize, which is a big deal. And when a guard and the captain come to you on the course, someone has died.
Yeah.
So the phone rang. Grandmother had passed away. And we went to Ennis General where she was brought to. She died on the way to Knock, if you can believe it.
Okay.
Right? Driving the car to Knock. And when I walked in the gate, I said, that man killed my grandmother. But it wasn't him. It was his son by accident. But I remember I always had this sense of people and emotions from a very young age. So my grandmother was the first big, big loss. I carried that with me for a long time.
Yeah.
And then my mom passed away when I was, I suppose, in my 30s, just after coming back from London, at kind of the top of what I was doing with Mary Portas, starting to set up my own business. And my mom, when she died, that knocked me for... I don't think I dealt with her child for probably 7 or 8 years. That's the truth. It took me years because, my eldest now is 10 and I think it's after you start having kids and your parents aren't there, like that's when it really hits you. But shaped me in the most, incredible way. And I think once you do, and maybe this is a call to action for anyone kind of going through it, go talk to someone, when you lose someone really close, because it will help with your emotions and, deal with whatever comes. Because what I found after the 5 or 6 years of not dealing with it, every issue became a major challenge instead of it just being the issue at hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, because you're not 100% yourself.
No, and you don't have, that kind of, you just are very narrow-minded, I think, when you don't deal with that kind of stuff.
I do think from every sadness, though, some little miracle comes in there somewhere.
100%. Even after she passed, I had the most amazing dream about a week later. And I was asleep in the dream and she ran into the room and gave me a big hug and big laugh. I said, I'm good, don't be worried about me. And I thought, and that was her as well. She always said like, when I'm gone, and her family were very much of when I'm in the ground, like don't be lamenting over the grave with me, get on with your life. And thankfully both my parents instilled a deep kind of entrepreneurial spirit in me, I think. Not even instilled, but encouraged. I came up with some harebrained ideas, I was, and I sing and I play music. I mean, they did everything for me, hands down. And my brother, if he does listen to this, he'd say, yeah, she was absolutely spoiled rotten. I was the youngest, and I probably was spoiled. And I was very independent, though, fiercely independent.
And how did he find that? Especially as when you're kids, there's 6 years, he's also an older brother.
100%.
So did he feel like he was the protector, or it was like, what's she going to do now?
I think he was being a teenager, that gap, I suppose. In our 20s, we started hanging out, but there was that gap. 6 years is quite significant.
Where does it cross over, actually? Like, did you ever fancy any of his mates?
100%. If I was to list, and equally, that works both ways, Sian.
Oh, yeah.
He, entrenched himself in the friends group very early on as well. But you know what? I think in hindsight, it's probably hard for him. when you grow up, he was older than me. He probably saw a lot more than I did.
Yes.
And equally, as a girl in the house, I think, a lot more responsibility falls on you. So I think as I've gotten older, I definitely think, you know what, he probably had a lot to put up with as well. But then I go, right, he's a man, he can just walk away. I don't mean it, badly, but deep down, the girl, I was the only girl in the house. So I was relied on a lot by both my mother and my dad, And I left and went to England that time, only for a short while, lived out of home for 20 years, and I'm back at home now. So when my mom passed away, I moved back in with Dad. I rented out my house and I never left. So now he's inherited, a Dublin son-in-law, and he's 2 grandkids, and even the dog is male. I am surrounded by men in my house, Shan.
Yeah. Well, karma, I hate to say it. It always comes back together. But so as a kid then, what did you enjoy? Obviously, did you understand the value of that extra pocket money? Because I loved working when I was young.
I loved working. I loved, hustling for the tips.
Yeah.
I loved the service part. I worked, and this, I tell this story a little bit, but I worked for a hotel in County Limerick called the Woodlands. I'm sure you've known it, Shan, over the years. And I grafted for that money, and we shared our tips, and rightly so. And, you come home and you see your wage after 12 hours, like working between a kitchen and a restaurant. You do understand the value of it. Am I good with money as a result? Absolutely horrific. I'm terrible with money. As quick as it comes in, it goes out. But by the same token, I will ensure my kids are working, from a young age, because I think it does give you...
you understand value, don't you?
Well,
and that I think understanding how work works as well.
Yes.
And being able to communicate and being able to, if you want big tips, you've got to be the most entertaining, the most charming.
And look, on a deeper level, I think I just want somebody else to tell my kids what they should be doing, because hell is not listening to me. But, put a small bit of a fire underneath them, which is what I had to do. I remember bosses wouldn't tolerate any sort of slackness.
No, oh Jesus.
And I won't compare, we won't do this generation, but like the work ethic instilled in us as kids, and even my parents had it absolutely flogged into us. Not in a physical sense, but it was very much like you earn your money, And of course, our business was outside our own front door. So there was no escaping, as much as you tried.
Because I grew up in pubs, and we used to have the old phones, the proper phones.
Yeah.
And if you picked up the handles and you tinkled the top, it would go tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. And that would be my dad saying, get down and collect glasses. And you'd be like, oh, God.
Brilliant. It's just great caught up in that era, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
Same.
I really did. I think...
I had a lot of freedom, We all learned to drive, probably a little bit younger than we should have. And then 17th birthday was like freedom, Yeah. And, you had to work to get in on the insurance, but the freedom we had at 17, 18.
And you have to, but you needed that freedom living, I suppose you were quite remote, are you?
Well, I live beside the pub, which is the best and worst thing, My bestie, the neighbours own the pub next door. And then we have a core group of girls that are still pretty much within a couple of miles. Very, very lucky.
Nice.
And we travel a couple of times a year. And so I've always had that kind of core group of girls, and we've been to some fabulous places.
Did you all meet at school?
So I would say 80% of us did.
Yeah.
Where I live, there's about 4 schools in the area, and you either kind of went to 2 of them.
Okay.
So pretty much most of us went to the same school.
And what were you like at school?
I had absolutely no maths on school.
Okay.
I love the interaction. I was fiercely competitive at sports. Still am.
Yeah.
And that's probably something a lot of people might not see. They see me posting up certain things, but I was on every team. I was even on the boys' teams. And it's funny, and I had a chat with a school pal of mine. I hadn't seen him in a while. And he said, Fiona, you don't know what actually, they were all afraid to ask you out. Not that I was this gorgeous person going, why aren't people asking me out? But I wasn't dating. I hadn't time for any of that. I was out playing every sort of random sport trying to get me out of school. That was my pass. I have great memories of the local parish priest, Father Ryan, R.I.P., knocking on the window, Sister Geraldine, we need Fiona. And you'd be like, yes, my path to freedom. So I played everything. So that growing up, it was a game of two halves. I think at home, things were quite difficult.
Yes.
Everyone was busy, and I just threw myself into sport, every sort of a team I could. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't love school, but I had some great teachers. And even to this day, we had a school reunion. I left. So I did my Leaving Cert in 96, giving it all away now. So we had, that would make it nearly a 30 years. So we had a 25-year reunion, and we bring out Sister Geraldine. We're absolutely in love with the woman. She was fabulous to us in school. You know, she kind of turned the cheek to certain things. And it was a boarding school, and my parents tried their absolute hardest to send me. And my bestie went off now it was a Monday to Friday, I could have.
Yes.
There was no way. I don't like I don't like the confines. And I think I knew from a young age, I'm definitely going to end up working for myself. And it's not that I'm obviously not afraid of work, but I don't like being boxed in. I like autonomy over my time. And I'll work twice as hard for anyone that gives me that kind of space. So boarding was never an option for me, but they did have to put me in to study and stuff in sixth year. So I spent sixth year day boarding, getting up at 8 a.m, not coming home till 9:30 at night. And then, doing my level best to disrupt the whole study group. I spent, but great friends.
Yeah.
I, and maybe this sounds incredibly narcissistic, but I don't think any of the teachers would have a bad word to say. They would definitely would have said I could have applied myself a bit more,
Mine just used to say, I wish she'd
just
think
rolled
before
through
she
it.
opened her gob, but that hasn't changed. All the reports, all of them. But,
yeah.
But,
so it was nuns, it was a convent school, and we were...
But I see you as being quite like me. Because I grew up in pubs and because you were working with the public all the time, I kind of
didn't bat an eyelid.
No, I talked to my teachers like they were my mate.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's how I felt.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if that's a gift or a legacy that maybe my parents have handed on, it's that don't be afraid to kind of, there's no one better than you or less than. And it is still a mad sense of justice as well if I see wrongdoing happening. It's a major trigger for me as well. To the point where actually, my own boundaries, I think, growing up suffered. I was so worried about what other people were feeling. Anyone was feeling left out. That's what it comes back to the facilitator. I think I'm a facilitator.
Yeah.
I make sure everyone's okay at my peril sometimes, instead of doing the whole, let them in a very current status at the moment. So it took me a while, I think, to gather my boundaries and explain or be explicit about them. So that's the joy, I think, of turning 40, and I definitely put those...
Wait till you're 50, girl.
Well, nearly. I'm on that side too, Shan.
But it's true though. I mean, I kind of was getting there once I hit fit, and it's that thing, and actually last year for me was stop caring about things that other people don't care about.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like you. But what if that happens, that might hurt her, or how would that leave her feeling? Blah, blah, blah.
That level of overthinking though, I think is what, you work in the event space too.
Yes.
I think you need a bit of that.
Yeah.
I think we're maybe prone to overthinking, just a tad.
Yeah, but
in a good way.
Change in a good way, in a nurturing way, in a empath way, But you just have to learn better to protect yourself.
100%. And what is now worth my time?
Yeah,
I have honestly tied myself up in knots. Amen. Let's fill our cup for 2025.
Yeah.
We spoke about that briefly. Yeah. So, I took a massive step back. I don't know where we want to go or where we are now in the years of what I've been doing.
Well, we're through school and we're sporty and everything. Did you know where you wanted to go next?
I had absolutely no iota. All I knew was I wanted to go work.
Okay.
And then my parents said, well, you can't go work without some form of... And I had gotten college, scraped a leaving cert, just about. And then I didn't want to go away. I'm a home bird deep down as well. There's a lot of contradictions. But so I said, no, I'm going to go to work. And my parents said, well, no, you're not. You're going to go away and learn maybe how to actually type properly, do a bit of business, whatever. So there's a very infamous college in Limerick. You may not be aware of it. It was called Mickey Max, right?
Okay.
Michael McNamara. It's like a PLC. Incredibly good reputation. I went and did PR. Like the irony of this now. And then ran away from it for 25 years. And now I'm going
Full
back.
circle.
So I did PR, learned computers, did some marketing, and then I got a job. I was working for a cleaning company down in Kerry. They were amazing and gave me my graft and lit a fire under me as well because I was quite lazy. All my friends were still in college, right? So we were living together. I was the only person getting up at 8 a.m. for work. They were all laughing their, you say arse in your podcast. So they were all laughing their backsides off at me and I was going off to work. So I did need to boot up the behind. And I hadn't a clue. I had no idea where I was going to go. I knew I loved people. I knew I wanted to work for myself. So I just started on this road to discovery. I went back doing supply chain. I was a buyer for years. As my mother said, and before she died, she was like, I had a really good job. Like I had it enabled me to buy my first home. I worked for a medical company, big American medical company, flew me all over the world. And then I just wasn't happy. Like I knew And I'd gone studying fashion and I thought, ooh, kind of like this. And I was that friend that was brought on a shopping trip, right? I was the one that, what do you think? And I was honest, I was able to, and I always knew what worked. And that doesn't mean, and I don't like putting anyone in boxes, but I knew like creating proportions. I knew what kind of lifted someone's eyes and face and made them smile. And I thought, oh, I might like to make a career out of it. So long story short, late 20s, an opportunity came to work for Mary Portas in the UK. So I went, no, not. And then I went, oh God, why not? So I was just after moving into my house. I was 30 and a friend of mine was on holidays and bumped into Mary Portas on some retreat. And she said, she's looking for, shout out to T. Carney, changed my life in ways that I'm not sure I'm happy about yet. But so there was a big audition. 400 applied for the job of her new label launching in House of Fraser. So yeah, I got down to the last 12 and then I was head stylist for the team. It was the craziest 2 years of year of my entire life.
And where did you live when you were over there?
I want to say thank you so much to Ella and Joe, our sponsors of this episode of Be Belle Podcast. Ella and Joe is all about bringing a joy and vibrancy to skincare. Each product is inspired by nature and boosted by science, designed to deliver the most amazing results, but also to be kind to your skin. It is luxury moments that brighten up our day. And as always, I want to bring it back to me with my two hero products. The 3-in-1 Hyaluronic Spritz, it stays in my bag all the time. And if you haven't tried Melt Away, then it's a must. It's the most beautiful cleanser. And don't forget, all Be Belle listeners can get 20% off all full-size products online. Just use the code BeBelle at checkout. So thank you, Ella and Joe, for sponsoring this series of Be Belle Podcast.
I lived in East London, a place called Wanstead.
Okay, no.
So I was only over there for about 8 or 9 months. My plan was to do 12 hard months, build my book of clients, try and woo some Irish, big centres to kind of bring me back. And then that's how Dundrum happened. And I'm there ever since, privately now, but very supportive. I met the GM of Dundrum in London. I gave him a tour, Mary Portas. I gave him a tour of the personal shopping suite. And I said, by the way, if you're ever,
I can come home.
So about 3 months later, the phone rang and would you come home and have a chat? And I said, absolutely. And I wanted to come home. And my mum was dying that year.
Yeah.
And I knew she was really ill. And it's a funny story about my dad. We're very, very close. He came to meet me in London because I said I was coming home. And it was like something you see in a movie, right? We were in the middle of Victoria Station, back to back. He was getting ready to get the train back. We'd gone for lunch. No big conversations. And he said, what are you coming home for? And I said, well, I want to come home. And he said, but you're coming home for the right reasons, are you? And I had started my business at this stage. So I knew I was in events. I knew I was going to do something. And I said, remember when you were coming down the road in that truck, Nick? When 1982, the height of the recession. What did people tell you? And they said I was mad. So it was like this silence, right? He just got up. He said, right, we'll see you at home. And that was it.
I love that.
So I had, incredible support. Even now, he said, I'm still not done. 46 now.
Oh, girl, I'm still not done.
Yeah.
It keeps going.
Well, what I mean is the support, my dad as well. And
but we'll always be their children.
100%. Yeah. And
That'll
I see
never
that
change.
now, right? I see my own growth. So I have 2 boys, 10 and Matthew's 10 and Ross is 7, nearly 8. It just flies.
Yeah.
It's I really need to start thinking about their college education. This is going way too quick. But so it's been a mad journey so far.
So you come back to Dundrum. Had you met your partner then?
Nope.
No.
I came back to Dundrum I started working in Dundrum with February or March, and then I'd gotten a phone call and made to say Mum had passed away. And I remember driving down, my car broke down the day she died. The day before she died. I had to hire a car in Portlaoise to get to Cork, but I made it. And I went back to Dundrum. I went back to work very quickly, probably too quickly after Mum dying, and just get on with it.
Yes.
Which is sometimes the right and wrong thing. And about a year later, I met my now husband, whose birthday it is. So Trevor's a dub, a great guy, and we met and I got pregnant very quickly. We were together 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it could easily have not worked out.
Yeah.
But it did.
Well, isn't that lovely?
Caught him again then 2 years later.
And how did you get him down to Limerick?
So there is a big bone of contention in our relationship. But you're just dredging this up now, Shannon, right?
I know, because it's
going to be Archie.
I don't hear of these men moving.
Okay, so he said it was a false sense of advertising. Right? We met online, okay? And it's not that we choose not to tell people. If anyone asks, we tell them. We don't make a big deal about it. So we met online. He was in Dublin, which I knew, and I was actually working a lot in Dublin. So I could be up in Dublin 3 or 4 times a week at this stage. I was single. I was back from London. I was trying to earn money. I was having the time of my life, right? I was going out, all the girls were around, we had great fun. And so I said, right, I better. I remember my mother, and she always said to me, you're never going to meet anyone, if you don't stay in the one place. I thought, that's boring, But then I started to settle a bit. I knew I wanted to come back to Limerick. So I went online, created the profile, and I said, right, let's just do it. And then Trevor popped up, sent him a message, and he ignored me, right? Ignored me to the point where I went 3 weeks later. I was like, do you know what a catch I am? Do you know that it's not everyone that I give my time, blah, blah, blah. So we met, and on my profile I had Dublin, Limerick. But really it was Limerick 80% in Dublin the odd time. So for the first, he had a business in Dublin, worked in media himself, sold it off to a bigger crew, and stayed in Dublin for transition. So when I got pregnant, we were travelling up and down to Dublin the whole time. So when I had Matthew in November, Trevor was still in Dublin. So he was coming out of Dublin City on a Friday evening, coming down to a baby and a hormonal mother. And Nicholas Hayes, my dad, I'd say, didn't know what to do with me. It's very good. So
and
the
that
first
would have
6
been
months,
before the main road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, no.
It'd just been done, had it?
Yeah, but it was still like a disaster getting out the city. Sure, look, you and I was 4 hours this morning. So up and down, and we just made it work. So slowly but surely I kind of said, well, we could make Limerick, girl. And I said, well, now we've choice. So no choice now, just do what you're told. But yeah, great guy, and still putting up with me. And understands the media space and understands working for yourself. And I think, if I didn't have that support, I definitely would have been going off doing half the harebrained,
Yes.
And even working across TV, which on and off I'd been doing for 10 years. He got it. Like if I said, I have to go to Dublin, and the stress, and sometimes unnecessary stress, to be honest with you. So that is up to, I took a break from TV last year and thought, how can I fill my cup? How can I gather space and develop the business and see my PR landscape where it is now? And I started to really enjoy working with retailers and kind of building their content and understanding how to put brands together and understanding messaging. I thought, I'm actually kind of good at this. I never had time to do it because TV was just like, turn it out next week. We've got a new brand. We've got a new makeover. So never got a chance to develop the business in the way that, and I may still change, but so I'm back to college. So now
I love that.
Back at university. Who would have thought it?
I love that though. And for me, I suppose, because everything's about feelings, isn't it? And about how things make, and you've been through loads of different stuff. And how do you think your life pattern has helped you to do what you do now today?
I think growing up in the environment I did, I knew fear shouldn't be a constraint.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm lucky and maybe stubborn as hell. If I make my mind up about something, I will do everything to explore that space. So I thought education has been something that has been a major chip on my shoulder for years, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't get a degree, scraped my leavings there. And I thought, I'm capable of so much more. And, a lot of people said to me, but do you actually need it? You've been working in PR and media and, retail for so long. And I said, I need it for me, And so what if it's a tick the box and it's incredibly superficial? But I need to know actually, how will I develop? How will I thrive? Will I get a chance to look at the business kind of? That is exactly what's happened. I remember signing up and I thought, I want to do a master's, but I don't know if I'm able for it. So let's do a postgrad or professional diploma. And the University of Limerick have been nothing but incredibly kind with their time, and great bunch of female and male, but mainly predominantly female lecturers, all doing their doctorates and being moms and heroes. Are fantastic. And a great bunch of peers in the class. And I have never thought I'd say it, but flourished in that environment. Yes. Like coming out with like top grades and like, who is this person? And I think it shows maybe, I don't know if I've answered your question by the way, but it shows maybe when passion drives you. And I've always let that. And I've been fortunate enough that my family, including my brother, they've all got it and they've all encouraged me. So that passion has always driven me. And because I've had it, it's never been a chore. So university is now that space for me.
I love that. But I think as well, when you're younger, I remember when I went back to uni there a couple of years ago, what I thought was so high and unachievable was actually not. Do you know what I mean? Because you're older and you can look at it in a different way. I was like, okay, is this actually
what I could have done? And I'm so glad you didn't use imposter and glass ceiling. There are two words or statements in my vernacular you will never hear. I'm beyond that now. But I did have a lot of feelings of insecurity because I never thrived in education. Yeah. But it's because I never knew where the hell or what I wanted to do. And I thought, it's not something that's encouraged in school, right? It's not like go out and work in one of the hardest industries you'll ever work in Ireland, in a country the size of a dot that still, the world thinks is part of the UK from a media point of view, with publications and houses and everything else. So I was like, this is just great. I'm going to go back into an environment that kind of helps me grow. And so I'm still there. I have 10 weeks left for this term. And now I'm like, events are getting busy. I've started to shape a little bit more of the events, which I would have done prior to doing a lot of TV. And that space is quite difficult, but challenging, and time to be creative. And, do you make a huge amount of money? No, but my cup is full.
Yeah.
So there are things, and I'll start to see now the areas that I want to develop and that are, let's be honest, lucrative as well. Like I'm not here for the giggles anymore. You do a lot of stuff in media for platform and for, to move into other things. And thankfully, that's what that space has afforded me. But yeah, I'm here to make a dent now. Hitting 50,
Absolutely. And that piece is important. Like I give a lot of my time for free, but also, like I said to you earlier, we were chatting before we came on, and this year is about me depositing into my own piggy bank.
Yeah. And the power of no. No, thank you.
But it's really hard to do that when you're so used to giving all the time.
Yeah.
And that education piece, actually, for me, I questioned myself so many times because I was like, am I just doing this because everybody has asked me for 30 years, do you have a degree in this? Do you have a degree in that? I mean, I went back and did European employment law, 20 years ago. I went back and did marketing a couple of years ago.
Shouldn't need it, right? But that's how people...
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't need it. I didn't learn anything. No. But because I talk to people all the time and I'm constantly studying. Yeah. I mean, I love information.
Same. And I never thought I would love it as much. And I never thought I was, the class lick is such a bad term. But now I find like people are coming to me for advice. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second now. Where is this shifted to? But, again, passion is driving what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Will I go back and continue on the Masters? Don't know yet. That is my hope. But I do need to make some dollars. And so, yeah, I'm just loving my time. And I'm able to pick up my son and take him to guitar on a Tuesday. I'm not up in a heap trying to get everything ready for TV, doing fittings. Like I honestly operated at a level that I don't know. I think sometimes I felt like I was outside my own body. Like I wasn't able to enjoy it.
Well, the last time we chatted, you were tired.
Yeah. Still tired, by the way, but a different kind of tired.
Well, we're all tired. Yeah. But no, I remember that evening. And
weary, I think, more so.
Yeah.
Like for me, the ultimate, and thankfully this changes, I won't say all the time, but every year, like you try and set your goals. For me, it was get a regular daytime TV segment.
Yes.
And then you go work years to get there. And then you get there and you're like, okay, this is it. Great. Shit. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Can I operate at this level? And rightfully so. People are coming up behind you. Everyone gets sick of the same face, unless you're a superstar, which I'm not and don't ever want to be. I want to be able to live authentically doing what I do, transforming women, reinvigorating their lives through making good choices for fashion, just empowering them to make it and make them feel good. And if I can do that on TV, great. But if I can do it as part of my business and help the businesses around it, like the retailers, grow as well, because I don't need to tell you, like bricks and mortar is tough. And it's something everyone keeps asking me, would you not have your own? And I said, absolutely. No hell's chance would I. And I think as I move into 50 now, it's not that, no, I'll help people do that, but bricks and mortar is very difficult. Retail is very difficult. So for me, it's always been about the women, the Manana Heron. And I do get a lot of guys as well. But so I don't know, if you were to ask me where do I see myself in 5 years' time, I think happier. Good. And that's enough for me. Yeah. Hopefully my children won't turn into teenage monsters and hate me. And my dad is happy and healthy and good relationship with the fam, my brother, my sister-in-law. We all go off on holidays. So we're planning trips. That's where I am now.
And those events that you're doing are all about, making people feel so much better. And it's lovely to give
it's
people
community, right? And it's something we didn't touch on. But for me, it's bringing it back to the community. It's a superpower I think we all have. And the more you involve the people around you, it's just, for me, I definitely get more from it. And that's why when Maeve rings and she's like, And now it's like me ringing Maeve going, okay, so what do we do next?
Yes.
And I get such a huge
It is. It's lovely.
Boost and buzz. And it's important to give something back. And I know that might sound facetious, but you just kind of wonder, like, what's it all for? So there is the contradiction of, yes, I need to make money, but within that space, I need to carve out time, because I see with my own community, we're a small parish, and we got up and running a party for older adults in the parish. We hadn't done it in about 9 years. And the joy and the crack we had from that.
I love that.
Everyone thought it's, oh God, fair play to you, you've put a lot of work into it. Put a bit of work into it. But the group that's there are so much fun. It's like, okay, we better have a meeting now on Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm just loving that and trying to be a little bit more present. And I haven't been that person for probably 7 or 8 years.
Amazing. I think you're completely right. You have to, we talk about filling our cup, but also you have to feed your soul, and doing those pieces are really, really important to me as well.
It's my dad in the background and my mother going, and when are you going to get a real job? That was something that was said to me for a long time.
Do you ever go, though? Because I have been at points in my life where I go to Tesco's and I'm like...
Every week. Every week.
Yeah.
I looked on LinkedIn, I see something kind of sexy that kind of appeals to me. And then I go, oh my God, like I am unemployable. And I mean that in the nicest way. I have, delivered communication strategies to C-suites. I have signed non-disclosure agreements. I have worked with some of the wealthiest people all over the world. I'm organising parties for people over the age of 80. I'm trying to sell events for, women who are stressed out. Like there's everything going on. And that's what I need to fill my cup,
And I love that.
But every week I go, oh God, would it be easier? And there still is. And I don't matter how successfully you are working for yourself, there's still the peaks and troughs. There's still the months where you're like, oh. But now I think I'm in a space where,
and it will work out. And you have the personality to do it. I need to spend more time with you. Without
we could talk all day.
No, absolutely. But like that is what it is for me. It's that lovely balance of giving and knowing where you want to go. And if the goal is happiness, then everybody can hopefully be successful. It's harder for others than some. But yeah, that's success to me if I'm happy.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to finish with a little question, because we have our book.
Oh, this is the hottie. This is the bit I was nervous about.
So I used to have a nice little jar, but I've gone to a fancy book.
This is a fancy notebook.
It's a fancy book. So the first page in that book, what is the question?
So the question is, what is the biggest lesson you have learnt in the past decade? Oh, I love this question. I think the minute I set up my own business was the minute I was very naive. I thought if you work hard, it'll just happen.
Okay.
And what I learned was the minute you start your business, you have to work twice as hard. And for me, it's giving space to the people around you and bring them up. Because what I noticed at the start was, I know it all. Yeah, what? I've opened up my own business. I know exactly. And then you learn very quickly you need people around you. So the lesson for me is mind your core group of people around you. Be respectful in business, because 10 years later, they're CEO of a company and you're knocking on their door for some work. So I guess the biggest lesson is kindness and be less naive in your approach.
Yeah.
That might sound like a bit.
No, I think it's a great pit. And if that's what you've learned in the last decade,
decade, definitely. I think for me, setting up my own business, I was naive and I thought it would all happen because I worked hard.
Yeah.
But you have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
And just be kind to people along the way.
No one ever sees the hustle.
And I love the hustle, right?
I love the hustle.
I love the hustle is what gets me up every single morning. And then after an event or after a project, I go, I am never. And then 2 days later, I'm like, okay, what's next? So and no one sees the graft. Like, I'm not selling out 700 and 800 seat arenas. And the same amount of work goes into an event, whether you have 120 bums in the seat. So I don't think people... And it's not their job, right? There's so much going on in the world. You have 40 euros to spend or 60 or 80 in a ticket. You just want to go. You just want to go and do it. I'm the person in the background going, and then we can get this person in that'll do this. And 9 times out of 10, people don't give a shite.
No.
So, be happy in why you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Be your own why. And then
we all just want to belong, don't we? We all just want to be together.
Together, belong, be kind.
Yeah.
And 9 hours sleep a night would be a bonus.
Yeah.
I have children who don't like going to bed. So if they started to do that, I think my life would be very happy and pretty perfect.
Well, I'm going to manifest it for you. Fiona, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll have to do it again.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you for listening to this week's Be-Bell podcast. Don't forget, you can find us on social media. If you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to DM us at bbell_wellness. You can also find this on our YouTube channel, which is my YouTube channel, Sian Horn. And don't forget, the more people that subscribe, the better that we can make this pod. So don't forget, like and subscribe across all channels. And thank you.